Welcome to Simply Sarah. I'm super excited that you are here. I'm host Sarah Stockham, and today we're going to have an incredible conversation with Adriana Dale. If you've ever wondered if how you feel about yourself and your internal conversations, if that has anything to do with your bank account, you're going to want to listen to the very, very end of this conversation. Adri, I'm delighted that you said yes, that you are here, because you are such a powerful person when it comes to speaking about money and our internal conversation. Every time you post, I'm there reading it and just taking and soaking in what you have to say. And I'm just delighted that you're here.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I was so excited to come and join Simply Sarah. And I just want to say, talking about money is incredibly satisfying to me. And it's such a different reality than the reality I was living, say, 5 years ago.
I would love for you to share part of that background story, because I think it's so important for people as they're listening to what you're going to be sharing in terms of techniques and ideas and different pieces of that, how important it is to hear your background story, because every time it's riveting for me.
Oh, I'd be happy to. So I grew up with immigrant parents. Both of my parents were born in Mexico. So they immigrated to this country and created a life for themselves and had 2 children and did fairly well. But the conversation that was always happening around the kitchen table with my aunts and uncles, with like our parents talking to us, was incredibly like, you have to work hard. Life is hard. Life is expensive. It's hard to get ahead. Getting a good job is like the most important thing. Holding on to that job, ensuring that it has a retirement and that it has benefits. And it was just, they were doing the best with what it is that they knew to be true, but that was their lens. And so as a child, I really kind of integrated this pedestalizing work and sacrifice and, being tired and going in early and leaving late as a true marker of what it meant to be a good person, or being the kind of person that deserved money. And it was exhausting. And so I integrated that into my belief system, and I worked very hard, and I did well, and I grew, and I got, jobs that I really liked and loved. But at this moment in my life, I remember I was like 37 years old, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, none of this is really what I want. None of this is really making me happy. And I am truly at a core an optimistic person. And this is before I had begun really kind of delving into the money mindset, into wealth consciousness, into being a conscious person, into energy, into studying all of these kinds of, ideas around abundance, that I there was this thing where I used to do, Sarah, and I remember there was a time in my life where my dream was to make $70,000, right? It was like, if I could just make $75,000, oh my God, that would just be amazing. And I had gotten right around to that point after, this is like after being in the corporate world for 10 years. Like, it was like a lot to work up to that. And I remember loving everybody that I worked with. I remember loving the company that I worked with for. So it wasn't, I didn't have this internal, like, I hate my boss, I hate the company, they're cheap, they're anything. I remember being so grateful for everything that I had. And I would drive home after work and I would think, somebody's going to offer me a job that's going to instantly double my salary. And it was not coming from an energy. And I didn't understand any of this at the time because I hadn't done any kind of look, like I hadn't, studied the law of attraction or energy or any of those things before. So I remember being happy, loving my team, loving my boss, loving my job, but just knowing internally that I should be making more money. And I would daydream about somebody just calling me and offering me a job that was exactly twice as much as I was making then. So not long after this, I would be driving. I was on maternity leave with my second child, and I was 37 years old. I get a call out of the blue from a former senior vice president at my company who had gone to become a CEO of another company. He wanted to meet with me. And I said, oh, I'm happy here. I'm on maternity leave. And he said, just come meet with me. And I said, okay. And so I went and I met with him. And we had a meeting in his office. We toured some of his stores. And then he's like, I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. And by 4 p.m. that afternoon, I had an offer for exactly double and with bonus and all the benefits. And I was like, oh my God. That's when I really started to look and understand, like, okay, I felt incredibly unworthy at the time, even though I had been unconsciously manifesting this, right? I felt very unconscious about what had happened, but I got in that job. I was like, what is he nuts? Why would he pay me this much money? I'm not the kind of person who makes this kind of money. He's going to realize he made a mistake and then I'm going to lose the job. And it was like catastrophic thinking, right? It was just, oh my God, like this can't be real. And who am I? Who does he think that I am to deserve this much money? And then I got in the job and, I would cry terrified on the way to work. And I thought to myself, like, I'm a fraud. I don't know what I'm doing. But it turns out that I did a really good job, that I actually did know what I was doing. And I did care a lot about people and people felt that. And that I did actually have a lot of knowledge. And that's when things started to happen where I was like, I really need to figure out, like, why I didn't feel good enough for this and figure out what's the next thing I'm going to want to do. So I stayed there for approximately 3 years. And during that time, I really delved into, working with coaches, working with, group mentorship programs, working one-on-one with coaches, reading books. And I was just so fascinated by this concept of being the creator of your reality, about thoughts becoming things, about everybody operating, because we really truly operate on, everybody's working based on the same laws of the universe, right? And so there's these stories, these lenses that we can kind of take on that make us feel like, oh, they're the lucky ones. It was handed to them. And those are all victim-based stories, right? Because anybody can create what it is that they want. And I truly believe that. I would say, like, my parents are evidence of that. My parents, who grew up incredibly poor, and made a life for themselves here. And so I started to study these concepts and recognize how much I was limiting myself based on storylines that I was creating and that I had adopted that were just no longer serving me, right? And they weren't based on blame. They were really based on, like, taking ownership, like true leadership, like true, like, compassion and understanding, and then being like, okay, if this isn't what I want, what is it that I do want, and how do I create that? And there's a lot of that kind of process of, you understand, when people experience like a spiritual awakening or a epiphany, or like when they wake up and they're like, this is not what I want. And I feel like, based on like my clients and people that I work with, I feel like the pandemic really kind of created this major, like, it slowed the whole world down, and people had the time and the space to get out of the monotony of what they had been doing day in and day out, and take a pause and reflect and be like, well, is this really what I want? Is this really, like, what is it that I want? What is important to me? Like, how do I want to interact with money? How do I want to feel about money? How do I want to make the money? Because I was born, in 1980. So I'm at the cusp of like the millennial and, prior. So it was just kind of like, I could see all of these patterns happening from, like boomer generation all the way down to like the newest generation. And it was just like you know, new generations were just like, I'm not available for the way things have been done for years and years and years. And I understood it. Like, I get it. Like, I didn't say, oh, there's, a lot of people are quick to say, oh, they have bad work ethics. They don't want to work. And it's like, no, it's not that. It's that they want to love their lives. They're not asking for handouts. They're asking to be creative. They're asking to feel excited about what they're doing. And that's just something that when I grew up, I thought, this whole concept of, find your passion, find the thing that you're passionate. I thought it was just so ridiculous and frivolous. And now I deeply understand it.
Yes.
Yeah. So my story was just a story of waking up one day, and this is now like, even when I was making and had doubled the salary, I woke up one day and I was like, I'm still living paycheck to paycheck. I'm terrified. I am charging groceries. I am constantly working for the next paycheck. And this is bullshit. I can't continue to do this. Like, there are people out there who are not living this way. And so I need to figure out what they understand so that I can change this reality. And it was just I'm not available for this anymore. It was like a switch that went off in my head that was like, this is not going to be the next 35 years for me. Absolutely not. And so I told my husband, do you trust me? Because this is not going to be our reality any longer. And I did the scariest thing that I've ever done, which I put I hired a coach for $8,000. That was $8,000 that I did not have. I put it on a credit card and I immersed myself with a group of people and with mentorship that had similar goals. And it was terrifying, but it changed everything for me. It really did. And yeah, I'm just so grateful that I took that risk. And it really is, those risks that we take, it's like a form of bravery, because the only thing that's holding any of us back is fear, right? So like when you see somebody and you're like, oh my God, they're so confident. It's like, no, they're not confident. They're just brave. They're brave enough to keep going after something that they're terrified of, but they trust. It's like building that internal faith inside of you, that it's like, if you want it, it's meant for you. And so the pieces will be shown.
It's riveting. I love this is how we do it, because we've gotten to a new country and these are the rules that we're going to play by. And part of that was also the age, right? And then moving from that to you saying, okay, I'm going to play by the rules, but not finding satisfaction inside of that. Yes, a life, but not necessarily a full living of what you wanted to be able to do. And that you kept this conversation going internally for yourself and following the next piece that was put in front of you. You weren't trying to take 15 steps forward. You just wanted to understand the next one piece. And as you did that, then it began to unfold the next question for you, the next realization, the next type of internal conversation to have to be able to move to the next step after that. And I love, love, love where it has brought you, because now you are a coach. You are helping people work through their own beliefs. And what's so authentic about what you do, Adri, is that you have gone through the process. You didn't just read a book and say, hey, I've got this. You have lived this process. And so as people come to you, who is your ideal client to come work with you and to have conversations with you about money or internal mindset or abundance or any of those kinds of things?
My ideal client is always the person who, wants the change, right? Like I get a lot of clients who tell me, oh my God, I have this person, I want to buy a package for them. And every time I say no, absolutely not. Like they have to want it. Like there has to be an internal something inside of you where you're like, I am fed up. I want something different. And I find that there's two different kinds of people who want a change. People who very easily adopt the concepts and can just dive into, spirituality and energy, like with such kind of an ease. And then there's the person who's like embarrassed to even be exploring those concepts, but is interested in them. So I want to say I am of the one that was so embarrassed. Like I wouldn't tell anybody what I was reading about. It was almost like, oh my God, like those people are weird woo-woo people. I'm not like them. Like I am a very like reasonable person. I have my like head on straight. I'm not going to be talking about this or that or the law of attraction. How ridiculous. And I find that those kinds of people, the people who are kind of embarrassed by it, but interested in it, have a true desire in changing how they feel about money, have an interest in making money, and are almost embarrassed to admit it, like wouldn't admit it to anybody because they kind of wear like a, like I'm broke as like a badge of humility. Like I'm a good person. I don't care about money. Those material things aren't important to me. That's who I was. But it really was, the truth is that I loved beautiful things. I loved luxury. I loved nice hotels. I loved all of that, but it made me feel like those things made me feel like I had failed because I couldn't access them. So I created this story of like, oh no, I'm cool. I'm a cool girl. Like I don't need those things. And so I kind of attract a lot of those kinds of clients. And, you know, it's kind of a process for them to admit like it's okay. It's okay to want money. It doesn't make you a bad person. It allows you to be more of who you truly are. Like what it is that you want is your soul's calling. And so a lot of us are so afraid to admit what we actually want. You know, we play so small because by playing small, we can't go after what we truly want and and fail, right? So we just don't even put ourselves into that kind of game, into that program. We don't change the lens because changing the lens is revealing more of the true self to others that may not have seen those glimpses. But I will say that there is nothing more magnetic, there's nothing more powerful, there is nothing more enchanting and magnetic than somebody who is fully expressed and fully shows the truth of who they are.
Wow, that's just such a deep concept because I believe that when we do walk into this space and take the choice, make the decision that we're not going to play small anymore, that there are things that show up that maybe previous programming that we thought there'd be obstacles. Maybe it's just making sure that we really want what we say that we want. But I have noticed that there can be a little bit of a pushback. And for some people, they get to that, like, okay, I'm going to take this step forward. And then there's a little bit of a, are you sure you really want this? And they're like, oh, I have to go back and play small again, rather than saying, I'm showing up and I'm telling you that I'm showing up. And this is what this is what I'm bringing into my future. I'm taking off the backpack that defines my life of I play small. I can be the last person. I can, spirituality can only happen if I'm not making a lot of money. All of those kinds of concepts. And I think that really is, you talked about a switch flipping. And I don't know that it's internal things that cause that to happen or external or a combination or us just finally being fed up with being fed up. And maybe it's a whole mixture of those kinds of things in the kitchen that kind of come together for someone to say, okay, this is my next step. What was one of the tools that really helped you have the internal conversation so that you could have the external conversation with your husband of, do you trust me? Because this is the direction that I'm going in. What were some of the things that allowed you or gave you the freedom or the validation or the space to be able to move into that area?
You know, I don't know that it was something that I thought about for a long period of time. I'm a quick decision maker. So like when something is when I feel something deeply, I like move in that direction. But I think that it had been this like internal building of like, why are things so hard? Like, does it have to be this hard? Does it have to be this hard? And then it was a switch. And I think that I had been asking that question in, on the drive home from work, in the shower, in the thing. And I feel like I was like unconsciously putting that message out into the universe. And I feel like there was this moment of space where I received some kind of message or like understanding or knowing that was like, it's up to you. You got it. You know what I mean? Like you have to decide when it's enough. And it was a decision. It was a decision. And, I have this course and it's called Believe. And the reason that I named it Believe is because you have to believe in what it is that you're creating in order to manifest what it is that you desire, right? And so all that programming that I had from childhood, it didn't really lead me to believe that the level that I wanted to live at was possible. It was a work hard, little steps at a time. It wasn't these quantum leaps. It wasn't these like, but then when I realized that I created that overnight I had manifested, I was thinking about it, and I wasn't thinking about it from a place of lack. I was thinking about it and daydreaming about it in my car as this like, wouldn't this be amazing? This fantasy would be incredible. And it happened. And I didn't even understand that was like, you know what I mean? Like a true manifestation coming and revealing itself, because I hadn't studied everything at that point. But then when I looked back, when I did all my constant reading, constant working, constantly exploring new ideas, constantly working with coaches and groups and masterminds and all of these things, I realized that I can look at my life going all the way back, and everything, every concept that I was understanding was true. And it was always when I felt the best that all of these things that I wanted were dropping in. And then I was like, I felt good about it. And I believed that it was possible on some level. I believed that there was an ounce of hope. And so, that's why I named my course Believe, because I teach people like what keeps them from truly believing, and then show them how to pivot into that belief system of I am the creator of my reality, because, being a creator of the reality, there's so much more involved in like really understanding that concept, or even believing that concept. It's that you are an extension of all that is, all the intelligence, call it universe, call it God, call it spirit, call it the divine, call it Mother Earth, whatever it is. Like, people are so obsessed with their phones and scrolling and algorithms. And it's like, no, the most insanely badass algorithm is the algorithm of the universe. Like, you are an extension of all that there is. And so, like the kingdom of heaven will be shown to you. Like you are in harmony with it. And when you understand how to cultivate energy that aligns you to that universal intelligence, right, then it's going to feed you everything that you need in order to, run into the right person at the right time and, have an idea or bump into the thing or, all of these things. That's the ultimate algorithm. And people are so obsessed with phones. So it's this understanding that you are meant to have whatever it is that you desire, and that it doesn't make you a bad person, that it actually makes you live out the contract that you were meant for as a human being living a human experience, on earth. And it's a very beautiful thing.
Oh, Adria, that's just, all of this is just so powerful. Really quick commercial break. And when we come back, I'd love, Adria, for you to share about how your friends changed as you changed, if that happened in that process. We'll be right back.
Great question.
And I'm getting to where I need to be.
Hi, I'm Julianne Meyer, the host of Own Your Wellness, and you can watch my show on Mondays and Thursdays from 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific on Achieve TV right here on E360 TV. Remember, there's more to health and wellness than broccoli and burpees.
Do you feel like you've been having to work hard to be healthy? I have felt like this too. My name is Christy Jones, and I'm a holistic health and mindfulness coach and educator. And I have found some efficient and simple ways that we can really help maintain our health, even in challenging times. We know we are in a time where our food is nutrient lacking. I hate we're not always getting the nutrients that we need from our food. We also know we're in a time of more toxicity than we even want to think about. Yet there are still things that we can do that help us to support our health and well-being. One of the things that I recommend for my clients and I use for myself to achieve that is a product called ASEA. Now, what I love about ASEA, gives our body exactly what it needs. Our body makes something called redox molecules. And redox molecules are our cell-to-cell communication. They help our cells to communicate, to know what to do in our body to achieve our optimal health. Now, when we do not have enough redox molecules in our body and our cells are not communicating, what do you think is going to happen? We may deal with some of the health challenges and the fatigue that many of us experience. However, when you have those molecules, you have enough redox molecules, you're setting yourself up for a foundation of health. So what is ASEA? ASEA provides our body with the exact redox molecules that many of us are lacking so that we can support our health and well-being.
We're having a fabulous, incredible conversation with Adriana Dale. She talks about manifesting and money and just living a life that is our contract, it's our calling, it's what's happening and the choices that we are making, and looking back perhaps at some of the programming or the things that we have learned from the people around us who I think wanted the best for us, and then deciding if that really is true for ourselves. And so my question before the break, Adri, was, as you were going through this incredible transformation, did you find that your friend group changed as well?
Yes and no. So I will say that at the very beginning, I found a lot of my friends very annoying. It was like this, all of these concepts were so new to me. And I have to say, it was like the very beginning that I was just constantly like, oh my God, they're so negative. Or, like I was part of the conversation of everything is so expensive, everything is so hard. And so when I realized what I was trying to create, I decided to remove all of that from my vocabulary, that I can't afford it. I was very kind of sarcastic and self-deprecating. Like, if we'd see something expensive, a friend would be like, Adri, why don't you just buy that? And I'd be like, oh yes, give me two. Like, but it was like in a joke of like, I'll never afford this. It was kind of like a self-deprecating, taking myself out of the equation. And so at the beginning, I found that I was like thinking, no, you shouldn't think that way. And trying to kind of control, like not overtly, but like internally annoyed by the conversations that were being had. And then I just decided that, you know what, I'm just going to have to remove myself from these situations, or any people who are very lack-based focused and want to talk about, how they're broke, how unfair, the economy is, like all of the injustice in the world, it was just a very low vibration. And I was very focused on cultivating the energy that I wanted to experience. Once I got good at cultivating my energy, then any conversation around me didn't affect me whatsoever. I would just kind of look at them and be like, oh, this is their lens, and that's okay. They have authority, they have agency over the way that they see the world. And I have what's in my control, and that's my authority and my agency. So I would look at them and I wouldn't feel sorry for them because they were looking at it through a very kind of lack-based lens. I would instead think, oh, they're going to figure it out. And, they're not going to feel like that forever. I would just kind of hold them to the highest energy possible of like, it's not going to be like that for long. Like, you're going to get out of this loop. I would just think and like hold that space for them. But in terms of friendships, I mean, I do think that if you are trying to cultivate a wealth consciousness, if you are trying to cultivate, more alignment to money and abundance and feeling safe and secure and, and free, and like you have options and all of those things, then it is important to begin to put yourself in environments with like-minded people. And those environments can be, difficult to come by physically, but I'm telling you, you will find your people if you immerse yourself in, online groups, coaching circles, mastermind groups, local meetups where people are talking about abundance consciousness. You want to start kind of immersing yourself in that, and you'll find that there's a lot of people out there. There are a lot of friendships to be made with that similar kind of energy. And that starts to cultivate the energy inside of you. And then, that doesn't mean that you have to cut off your friends that you've had since childhood. I certainly haven't. I just accept them for who they are. And you also kind of influence them in your own energy to desire more and start to believe that more is possible for them. I can't tell you how many friends have said, oh my God, like you've helped me, earn more, expect more, feel more excited, more happy. And that's what your energy will do for your friends as well.
And one of the things that I've known about you, Adri, is how good you are with words and how amazing you are at editing. I have no idea if you have a degree in editing or not, but your ability to take something where somebody writes it, because you've edited for me, and the transformation in that process has been remarkable. And part of that is that you also believe no matter what you're saying. So I'm not advertising Adri as an editor for other people, right? I don't know if you might be doing that or not for other people, but what I'm sharing here is this idea of you being able to see that it's not just about money. It's not just about luxurious items. It's about literally everything that you touch and that you do. You see that there is a path forward, a way to make it better. And that just flows out of you. And I have been super lucky to have met you in one of these mastermind groups and have these conversations, and to listen to you talk about thinking and about the process of what that looks like. Do you find that your dreams have also changed in terms of sleep? When you sleep at night, your REM dreams, have you found that those have changed as well? And then also your desire dreams, in terms of what you daydream about, have those things changed or shifted, or have they been pretty much the same?
I'm not someone who remembers my dreams at night, but I am a person who daydreams a lot. It's very natural to me. I'm always kind of creating storylines in my mind about, creation, things that I desire. I am making coffee as I walk through my house. I envision walking through my dream house. I love my home, but like, it's okay to want more. And so, yeah, in terms of my daydreams changing, yeah, I mean, I will say that my life has changed in direct proportion to my dreaming. Like I could say today that I don't think about money when I go out to eat. I don't think about money when I order food. I don't think about money when I go shopping for a piece of clothing. I really don't and that is crazy. We don't often look back and see how far we've come. We're just kind of looking forward at what we're trying to create. But it's only in the moments that I look back that I'm like, oh my God, this would have been out of the concept of anything that I could have ever imagined would be real for a normal person. But here's the thing is that I feel like we hear all of these celebrity stories of overnight sensations, right? And then they get interviewed and then they'd be like, no, I was actually you know, auditioning for years and years and years and years, and, you know, this or that, or like, you know, everybody's heard the story of like Jim Carrey writing a check to himself for like $1 million for services rendered, and then putting it, and then he like lands this thing and he gets that. Like, there are so many more stories of that from normal non-celebrity people that exist everywhere at all levels. You know, one of my neighbors, one of my parents' neighbors, my parents are from a very kind of, you know, working class neighborhood, and it's where I grew up. It's where they still live. And one of their neighbors, you know, built a tech company out of his garage and sold it for like, I want to say like $24 million. And like, it was just this guy who was building this like tech concept out of his garage. And, you know, there's a story like, but it's so important to never stop dreaming. It's so important to never take yourself out of the game. It's so important that you recognize that your life is so valuable that it doesn't matter if you are in your 40s or 50s or 60s. Like, life has not ended. Anything can change at any moment. Like, you didn't make so many wrong decisions that the rest of your life now is because of those circumstances. Like, at any moment, somebody could change regardless of how much money they have in the bank, of how much they weigh, of what they look like, of any of those things. Your life can be radically different in 12 months once you decide that you are available for more. Once you make that decision and you start believing that it's possible for you, that's when a new game starts in your program. That is you writing the next, you know, the next timeline of what it is that you're going to experience. I mean, you know, it's a beautiful thing. And money is just an energy. Money is an energy. It needs a safe place to land. It needs somebody who loves it. It is on if I start to talk about money, it's imaginary, it's energy. You know, if you think about money and how much money you have in the bank, I think that a bank only needs to hold like $10 per 100, like in, you know, in actual money. The rest is just numbers and computers. I mean, think about all of the money exchange that's happening in the world all day long. It's constant. It's you're Venmoing people, you're Zelling people, you are paying with Apple Pay at the thing, and all these numbers are just changing and changing and changing. But no bank has stacks of cash or bars of gold that equal what they're supposedly insuring, right? The reason that we still have money is because all of us believe in it. And so it's not going anywhere, right? It's like a way, and you have to have a relationship with money. You can't live in this world without having a relationship with money, because you're going to have to buy groceries. You're going to have to buy gas. You're going to have to buy, you know, lunch. You're going to have to buy, you know, equipment that you need, paintbrushes to paint. If you're an artist, you're going to need all of these things. And so to not cultivate a relationship with money that feels safe, that feels secure, that feels loving, right? What it is that you're being is attracting what it is that you're having. So if you're like, money makes me feel scared, I'm uncomfortable by it, right? I get angry at it. It's unfair. It's not a fair system. Then what you're saying energetically is, keep this money away from me. Like, you are repelling money with those belief systems. But when you're like, I love money, money is safe, I always have more than enough, it takes care of me, like, it gives me options, it gives me the ability to be a resource for family members who need help, for organizations that I believe in, for, you know, charities that, can use the resources, then the money is like, oh, well, Adriana loves money and she feels good about it. So let's give her more of it, right? It's like being in that alignment to money. But when you're over here talking about injustice in the world and unfairness, and then that becomes your lens, and that has to become a reality, because energetically speaking, you are attracting what it is that you're being, right? So when I was being a hard worker, making the money felt hard, and it had to keep me at a check living lifestyle, because my lens was life is hard. Life is hard. So energetically, that was the only thing that I was aligned to. And so it took time for me to change that programming and being like, no, making money can feel easy. It could feel good. It could feel fun. I could laugh and make money. I can go to sleep and make money without any effort whatsoever. I could have a new great idea that generates a lot of money. I could write an ebook and make money. I could do a mini course and make money. I could propagate a bunch of little plants and sell some succulents at my yard sale and make money. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you start to align yourself with the belief system, the energy of somebody who can make money in ways that feel good to them. And so then the universe is going to be like, oh, when she feels good, she makes money. So she's had a great day. Let's get her, 4 clients. Let's get her, it doesn't even matter. It's like the algorithm that we don't understand that is the most divine and the most powerful. So it's about you thinking thoughts that make you feel good, right? Because everything you feel is based on the thought form in your mind about what you're thinking of. And so it has nothing to do with, changing your internal programming is work, but it's not necessarily hard. It can be painful at times to look at truths that need to be untangled and sorted out. But it's not necessarily hard work. It's work that requires a lot of focus. It's just focusing, being conscious of the thoughts, recognizing if they're serving you or if they're not serving you, and then having a more compassionate thought in the place of something that didn't feel good. We're so hard on ourselves. We're so hard on ourselves. And it's so important that we treat ourselves as you would treat the person that you love the most in the world, or your best friend.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Adri, you share such concepts so easily. And I just so appreciate how you're able to take these different ways of looking at things and pull them together in this really important conversation. If there was one nugget that you wanted people to walk away with today, what would that one concept, that one idea be?
I would say that I would want everybody to know that they're the ones that set the set point of what they earn. So you are the authority. So if your goal is to make $100,000 a year, your boss is not responsible for it. Your employer is not responsible for it. Your economy is not responsible for it. You are responsible. You set the set point. You set your financial set point, and you look at that set point, and you are unwavering and unshakable around building and cultivating your belief system that that is meant for you. Because, you know, you can make twice as much as you're making right now and do half the work. The problem is that a lot of people think, oh, it's going to be twice the work. And it's like, no, it doesn't necessarily have to be. There's a million options out there. You have to energetically align to what it is that you want. So I would say, don't put the onus of what the industry standard is or what it is. You set your set point. Yeah. And you make that a non-negotiable energetically inside of you. And then you just watch it drop in.
Yeah. I think the one thing that you've shared, that you've talked about, that really strikes home for me today is the concept that I can sometimes say, okay, this is how the money has to come in, or this is where it needs to come from. And you giving all these different ideas, it's about setting that point and then saying, it doesn't matter how it comes in. Maybe it's going to be this way, maybe it's going to be this way, but to not be so attached to it has to look like this, because what we're looking for is being open, being creative, being available. And so it doesn't have to look like X in order for it to come in. And my husband recently said something to me, and I was like, oh, I don't know about that. And as I sitting here in this conversation with you, I'm realizing he's looking at things from a much broader lens than me, because I was like, oh, that couldn't be. But yes, it can be, right? Go ahead, Adri.
One of my favorite, I'm so glad that you brought this up, Sarah, because this is so good. A lot of things that keep people stuck is they feel like they need to know where the money's coming from. And that knowing is what usually attaches them to doing all of this research and saying, well, no, this is what it is, right? It's like you feel like you need to know the how and figure out how that is possible. Taking steps to move in the direction that you want something to drop in is important, but you have to have faith. Like one of my favorite tricks that I tell everybody about, I think I've shared it with you, Sarah, is I'll say, you know, I would like a $70,000 cash injection. And then I'll say, surprise me. I don't want to know how, I don't want to figure it out. I don't want to do this. Like, this is what I want. And I want it to be in a way that it would have been like the last thing I thought of. Right. And that way I don't become married. Sure, I continue to take action and move forward in the way that I'm inspired to, or based on the ideas that I have. But something will always come in that is outside of the scope of anything I would have ever thought of. And it drops in. So being open to not knowing the how, and that also requires cultivating trust and faith in your alignment to intelligence, to God.
It's that space again of believing that the feelings that we have inside of us that are welling up, things that are encouraging, things that we sense and believe and know, or just feel drawn towards, that are expansive and that are so good, to believe that those were placed there for a reason, that the seeds of those concepts and ideas and feelings are not something for us to negate and say, no, we can't, but to say, yes, they're here. And then I love that. Just surprise me. Show me how this is going to show up, just allowing it to happen. Adriana, I have loved this conversation with you. This has been so insightful on so many different levels. And we have chosen to not show a couple other commercials just because the conversation has just been so solid and good. I just would love to have you come back at some point. I know that you have a huge day ahead of you. And thanks for carving out time for us to be able to have this conversation.
Of course. Thank you, Sarah.
Absolutely. It has been just so good. And so, friends, if you want to get a hold of Adriana Dale, I'm going to go ahead and put her banner back up one more time. And this is how you can get a hold of her, the.adriana.dale. She has free ebooks. One that I have been just really, really coming in on, just in terms of allowing the conversation to be working on me, in me, so to speak, internally, is one that she has written that goes along with her belief. And so I signed up to be on her email list, and that's how I got a hold of that book. Her writing is something that you can chew on and just enjoy and savor, and allow it to help you begin to shift your thoughts about money, about who you are, about things that are important. And I'm so glad that you've chosen to be here today. Thank you so much for investing in yourself by being here with us on Simply Sarah.